I'm Peter Ashabiomo. Welcome to the first installment of The Treacherous Patriots. If you haven't heard, tomorrow Game of Thrones returns. The drought is over. I'm especially excited because the season is starting later than usual. They had to shoot later because of some nonsense about creative authenticity. If you ask me, they're just lazy. But while I've been waiting for Game of Thrones to finally start, I've occupied myself with a drama that is equally intriguing with just as many plot twists. The crisis that is occurring in the Gulf region of the Middle East. If you haven't heard, Qatar, a member of the Gulf Cooperation Council, has been placed on embargo by 6 other countries in the Middle East, 3 of which are also part of the GCC. Now, if you really know the intricacies about what's really going on, it's juicier than Game of Thrones. The 6 countries participating in the embargo are Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Yemen, and Libya. They're not allowing Qatar to use its airspace and cut all diplomatic ties with the country. Oh yeah, the Maldives are also participating in the embargo, but it's the Maldives. Now, even though Qatar is the richest country in the world per capita, they rely heavily on imports, so the blockade is very significant. Now, why have these countries blockaded Qatar? Let's break it down, Game of Thrones style. Now, Saudi Arabia, they're pretty much the Lannisters of the region, the wealthiest, most powerful country in the Gulf. Initially, they claimed they placed the embargo on Qatar because it funds terrorism. But Saudi Arabia being angry over a country supporting terrorism is like Donald Trump being offended because somebody bragged about grabbing a woman by the privates. The epitome of hypocrisy. 15 of the 19 9/11 hijackers were Saudi, and in 2009, WikiLeaks uncovered diplomatic cables which showed U.S. officials admitting, and I quote, donors in Saudi Arabia constitute the most significant source of funding to Sunni terrorist groups worldwide. They've also spent billions of dollars spreading Wahhabi Islam in poor Muslim countries throughout the region. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and similar groups ascribe to Wahhabi Islam. Pretty much all the countries involved in the embargo support extremist groups worldwide. The UAE and Egypt both fund extremist groups in Libya, and the United States is complicit in supporting extremist groups in Syria with ties to ISIS and Al-Qaeda. So much so, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard felt the need to introduce a Stop Funding Terrorism bill. Funding extremism is like the fidget spinner of foreign policy. All the kids are doing it. So why are the Lannisters really mad at Qatar? We'll just call Qatar House Tyrell. They're rich and very strategic. Now, Saudi Arabia is angry at them for 2 main reasons: Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood. Iran and Saudi Arabia are rivals in the region. Think Lannisters versus the Starks. The rivalry is both ideological and geopolitical. Saudi Arabia is Sunni while Iran is Shiite, but the main source of contention is power. Both want to be the top dog in the region. Qatar is caught in the middle. Their foreign policy has mirrored Saudi Arabia's on some issues such as Syria, but mirrored Iran in other areas. In Syria, both Qatar and Saudi Arabia have funded rebel factions to undermine the Assad regime. Saudi Arabia just wants to weaken Iran because Syria is a key ally. Qatar's reasons are unclear. It could be about getting a pipeline from Turkey to Qatar through Syria, or just a goal to reshape the region. But in Syria, Saudi Arabia and Qatar are basically on the same side. But on different fronts, Qatar is aligned with Iran. Now, to a degree, cooperation between them is mandatory. They share a gas field with Iran. The North Dome field is in Qatar's territorial waters, while the smaller South Pars field is on Iran's side. But both Iran and Qatar support groups such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Palestine, which hasn't made Saudi Arabia too happy. This entire mess started because Qatar's news agency reported the Emir of Qatar made favorable comments about Iran. They later claimed they were hacked, but Saudi Arabia wasn't buying it. Qatar has enlisted the help of the FBI and 2 other countries to help them investigate the hack, which would be a lot to do just to cover a lie. They also don't like Qatar's support of the Muslim Brotherhood, which the Saudis view as a threat to their supremacy in the region. The Muslim Brotherhood challenges the status quo, which the Lannisters are not feeling. They also don't like that House Tyrell is making moves. Qatar has Al Jazeera, the largest U.S. military base in the region, and a Turkey base coming. Qatar is also part of a deal with Russia's oil company, Rosneft, not to mention their growing partnership with China. China is Qatar's 2nd largest customer, and they have a number of infrastructure projects with them. Add the fact that 2022 World Cup is hosted in Qatar, and it's clear that they're going in. So House Lannister is mad that House Tyrell is on the come up. This may be the only thing that saved them from the wrath of Saudi Arabia. If they weren't so intertwined internationally, they might have incurred military reprisals from Saudi Arabia by now. Based on the demands, it's clear they simply want Qatar to do what they say. Among the demands are the shutting down of Al Jazeera, a closing of their Turkey base, ending ties with Iran and the Muslim Brotherhood, a payment of reparations, monthly audits for a decade, and 2 teenagers offered as tribute from their 13 districts at the Hunger Games every year. Alright, that last one was facetious, but Saudi Arabia is bugging. If Qatar accepted those terms, the only difference between them and Lord Varys would be he never consented to his castration. So that's why the Lannisters are mad at House Tyrell. All the other countries have their own reasons, but they're pretty much just following suit. The UAE, they're the Lannisters' bannermen. They hate the Brotherhood and Iran as well and are locked in a proxy war against Qatar and Libya, which is now split into 2 states. Thanks, Obama. The UAE pretty much just follow the Lannisters' lead. But they have an ambassador to the US who's named Yusuf Al-Otaiba. This guy is so Littlefinger. He's known for throwing extravagant parties and has incredible influence in Washington. His emails were leaked and show that he's been lobbying to get the base that's in Qatar moved to the UAE. Egypt, they are definitely the Boltons. That administration is so brutal they probably flay people. And President Sisi looks like an Arab Bruce Bolton. They're dependent on Saudi money and they hate the Brotherhood. They're also on the opposing side of Qatar in the Libyan proxy war. Bahrain, Libya, and Yemen literally don't have governments. Bahrain is completely propped by the Saudis, Libya is split in 2, and the conflict in Yemen is so bad it makes Syria look like a lover's quarrel. Oh, and the Maldives. They're the Maldives. The 7 kingdoms of Westeros jockeying for political advantage. But across the narrow sea to the east lies the United States. With as complex as all these issues are, we're left with King Joffrey, a spoiled figurehead that is wholly incompetent. The administration has been splintered on the issue from the very start. Saudi Arabia implemented the embargo mere days after Trump met with King Salman. Trump endorsed it on Twitter. Days later, his Secretary of State called the blockade a blow to the fight against terrorism, and literally moments after that, Trump endorsed it again, calling Qatar a supporter of radical Islam. And then a few days after this, his Pentagon signed an arms deal with the country. As fractured as Obama's administration was at times, it's hard to recall a time where he and his State Department or Pentagon differed so vocally. Shoot, as bad as Hillary Clinton was, she didn't have such a superficial grasp of the region. She's untrustworthy. She's not simple. A far cry from Joffrey, she's more Cersei. I'm not just making that comparison because they're women. Both are calculating and manipulative, and they both have that weird 80s trucker haircut thing. But I digress. Oh, they both had marriages that were clearly for political advantage rather than love. Cersei has her zombified mountain to do her bidding. Hillary has her secret kill list. I wonder how close she is with her brother. Off topic. It seems Trump has calculated that isolating Qatar makes him look engaged against terrorism and also hurts Iran. When you make a promise about defeating ISIS in a month with your secret plan, you're going to press for results. But delegating the region to Saudi Arabia is not the right tact. If you want to fight extremism, call them all out and lead by example by stopping our agencies from supporting it too. But to his credit, Trump has recently brokered a ceasefire in Syria. This could save lives and challenges the extremist groups operating in the area, but only if it lasts. So that does it for the first installment of The Treacherous Patriot. If you liked the video, please subscribe. If you didn't, subscribe anyway. Help a brother out. God bless you, and God bless America.